Well, this is some bull crap. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching, please stand by, as I might have been the one to fuck up the lobby that time. I hope it wasn't me, but it may have been me. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host for today's broadcast, Insane Leader 13, as we are about to get underway for Stint 4 here, out of 6 for the Silverstone 2,000 kilometers. We are halfway through right now. I had a little bit of a hiccup. I hope I'm wrong, but I think I might have caused a bit of problems and may have forced them to required everyone to make a lobby restart. I hope it wasn't me, but I think it may have been me. But real quickly, let's look at some of the drivers who will be running in today's event. Maverick is going back-to-back in the Chevy. This one lad is also going back-to-back. So is TBR Rose, and Harry Paradise is going to be back. NWR Virage and AFMG Vorm will be taking the other 2 McLarens. And no, there are only 5 McLarens. I don't know why I keep thinking there's 6s. AER Wolf is going to be in Dark Sirs Vantage. PTG Chungus will be going back-to-back in his Vantage. Lalba will be finally taking over. It'll be the second driver now in the Audi machine. VER Razor, TBR Fat Mark, Harry Tools, and the Batman will be in the Merc. The Huracans will have LES Railgun in the white Huracan that won the first 2 stints, and Yokimbo will be in the Boys Huracan. For the GT3s, it will be AFC Izzy and Windcharger. You will also have, I think I've already looked at everyone actually, yeah. So you'll see them reorder the grid. It does look like somehow, despite all odds, AFZ Mavericks team still leads. It's not going to be very much at this point, but they do still lead at this stage of the event. Gonna take a little bit of time to get this ordered because we have had several different drivers lagging out, including most significantly the LES Huracan entry, which dominated the first two stints and then lagged out before the first lap was even done in stint 3. So yeah, it has been very interesting with all the disconnects we have had throughout the event today. We're going to see several faster drivers near the very rear of the grid as we get underway here. So keep an eye out for drivers rushing their way up the grid here at Silverstone. Same thing as usual. They will be going when they get to the bridge that is on the first straightaway, not counting the start-finish straight, the one that basically delineates the difference between Sector 1 and Sector 2. And it will be single file per usual. Right. We have dropped from 18 cars to 17 at this point in the event, so halfway through we have finally lost a entry in the event. All right, so it will be Maverick, Virage, Razor, Rose, and Jokimbo. Your top 5 as they come to the line here. We are off. How long can Maverick keep Virage behind him this time? They need to do everything they can because Virage is very close to overtaking that Chevrolet in overall time thus far in the event. And immediately Maverick leads the inside open. Virage sees a shot. Is he going to go for it? Couldn't go for it that time. Several drivers go into ghost mode. Are they going to have to redo the lobby? Yes, they are. All right. Cool. I apologize for that, ladies and gentlemen. And now my Forza is locking up. Bloody wonderful. Come on, game, I was in spectate mode. It's not like it should be this hard for you to figure out what to do. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. This is attempt 3 now. All right, attempt number 3. We've already gone through the grid. You've seen them reorder it twice. Hopefully there's no random bullcrap that happens that requires another restart early on here. And you'll see the field file on down here through turns 3, 4, and 5. Coming down, we're going to focus on Viraj, running right behind Maverick. Maverick needs to keep Viraj behind him at all costs. Viraj needs to go by and open up a nice big gap like what his teammate did prior. We are green, and it looks like Maverick actually got a respectable jump. Razor immediately putting the pressure on Viraj the moment they get going here. Maverick leads the inside door open just a bit. Here comes Viraj, tries to get alongside, can't. The McLaren slides a little bit wide. Still a Mercedes right behind. Then you have TBR Rose, who runs in 4th right now. Top 4 all seem to get a little bit of a gap opened up early on here. So now Maverick leads the inside open. It brings Viraj right up behind the rear wing of that Chevrolet. Here comes Razor. Razor looks to the inside of Viraj. They'll be side by side for second position as they go into Maggots and Beckett. And it's Razor who is sideways. Razor who's losing it. And he ends up right in front of PTG Chungus. He doesn't go completely sideways, but he goes from 3rd all the way back to 6th and might even lose that to Harry Paradise as they fire off onto the longest straightaway on the circuit again. Yeah, here comes Harry Paradise to the end, to the inside of VER Razor. Looks for it. He's got the nose there, but on the acceleration now, it looks like the Mercedes is going to have him, I think, for now. Razor has stopped the bleeding in 6th position. But now it is TBR Rose and the boys McLaren who is going to try and put the pressure forward on NWR Viraj and AFZ Maverick. Maverick leads lap 1, but he still has that McLaren of Viraj right behind him, putting him under pressure. Viraj wants to try and dispose of this Chevrolet as fast as possible. Maverick runs a little wide to defend the inside against that number 156 NWR McLaren. And now look at that, TBR Rose comes up. Rose is gonna make it side by side with Virage as they go through turns 4 and 5. Now Rose falls back in line behind Virage. Top 3 in a little menage a trois as they go down the Mirage Bridge, the Mirage straightaway here. Virage looks, try and figure out a way to get alongside and clear. The Chevy makes a little bit of contact, gets Maverick a bit sideways there. Big sideways movement by Virage. Now the accelerate onto the old start-finish straight. Rose is right there. If Virage tries to pop out of line, Rose will automatically take the alternate line just to try and move by that number 156 machine. Now the run down to Maggots and Beckett's. The 156 car is right behind. Now he's going to look to the outside. Does he go for a big dive? No, he does not go for a big dive, but the Chevy has a bad run going into Maggots and Beckett's. It keeps the 156 right behind him now. Rose seems to be falling off just a little bit. Now Virage goes to the outside. The big thing, though, is now... Oh, and look at that crossover! I did not think that was going to happen, but he pulled off a heck of a daring crossover. Now he is on the outside of the Chevrolet. The Chevy goes really deep under braking, maintains the position. And this has also brought Rose back into the fray. I see no way that Maverick wins this. Maverick right now is barely holding on to the lead while his tires are good. Once we get about 6-7 laps in and his tires hit about that 30 to 32% mark, he is going to hemorrhage time to Virage. There is no way I see Maverick winning this, and there is no way I see that AFZ team maintaining their spot at the top. Maverick, Bosch, turn 3, and now the 156 comes around the extreme outside. He's going to try, try the crossover out 4. Didn't make it work that well, and Rose is going to now go and try to make the outside work on Virage. He actually parlayed that mistake into a bit of an advantage. It's given him a bit of a gap on Virage. As you see, Joe Kimbo and Harry Paradise having a bit of a fight between each other there for 4th further back. But this is the main focus here for 2nd. 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, all on top of each other. And as Maverick, Virage, and Rose continue to all hold each other up, they are dragging the rest of the field up onto them. Right now, TBR Fat Mark is at the back of the grid, has kind of lost the plot. Windcharger and Harry Tools also is having troubles. Another driver to really take a quick look at. Look at this LES Railgun as they are side by side with an Aston Martin, and he is by Chungus and Railgun in the car that dominated the first 2 stints, trying to rush their way through the field. This could be the real wild card. If Railgun can just keep the car clean, he might legitimately have what it takes to run down the leaders and make something happen and steal a 3rd stint win out of 4 stints here. But at the front, it is still nose to tail. Maverick, Virage, Rose. Maverick has a bit of a gap on the 2 McLarens just for the moment. Coming down to the final chicane. Maverick defends inside. Virage is not going to go for a move this time. He actually ends up bouncing the car over the curb just a bit there. Maverick already starting to struggle a bit, keeping the car on track. Oh, but Virage was wide. Virage was really wide coming out of the final corner that time. That keeps Rose right behind. This is it. This is where Virage seems to have a good run on Maverick. Maverick's going to defend the inside. So now Virage tries to go to the outside. He's going to try the crossover. He gets the crossover. He's pulling it off. He's side by side, but now he's on the worst lane coming out of turn number 4. They put the power down, and he ends up behind the Chevy as they go through 5. But the Chevy is wide, slides. The McLaren slides as well. They're still right on top of each other. The Chevy defends the inside. Virage is going to go to the outside now. Tries to cut down, tries to deny the Chevy a good run, coming to the 180 corner. They make contact. Boy, are they making contact. They're making a lot of contact. Virage is through, and Virage is by. It didn't even take 4 full laps, but Virage has already disposed of Maverick. Now, Maverick does have decently working tires for now, and now he'll have the draft, so he can still put a bit of a fight up now, but he needs to start doing it now, because if they get through Maggots and Beckett's and that gap opens up, it's going to be bad. Here comes Maverick. Maverick is setting up to try and be side by side with Virage as they come down to the line. Rose is there as well. Rose wants to make it 3 wide. He backs out at the last possible moment. The two of them go deep into Maggots and Beckett's. Neither of them have a good run, but it's going to be Maverick who goes deeper and pulls out ahead of Virage through Maggots and Beckett's. And now they come onto the longest straight once again. This time Rose is right behind Virage. He looks to the outside of Virage. Rose trying to pull up alongside. They'll be side by side for a second position. Virage has a bit of a draft. He's going to go deep, really deep into the corner to try and get right behind the Chevrolet. It works perfectly. Now he's going to try and go to the outside. Does he try and go the long way around, going into the chicane? Heavy under the brakes. No. Is he going to try the crossover? Oh, he sure thought of it. He put the bumper. He's there. He's on the inside of the Chevrolet. Side by side as they come out of the final corner. Drag race down the start-finish straight at the line. Virage had the nose ahead. Maverick on the outside in turn 1. Can he be on the inside in turn 2 at least? No, he gets shunted off. Rose touches Maverick, forces Maverick offline there. And that might be it. That might be all it takes for NWR to win the stint and potentially the entire event. Rose has already disposed of Maverick as well. LES Railgun back there in 6th. He is making headway up through the grid, but now Virage leads and TBR Rose is trying to run him down. Rose wants to make something happen here in the boys' McLaren. You can see 4th, 5th, and 6th, Yokimbo, Harry Paradise, and Railgun just a little bit behind this trio, but visually you can see that Maverick is just hemorrhaging time to Rose and Virage. It's going to be McLaren on McLaren action here at the head of the field as they go down the old start-finish straightaway again. It's just a 1/5 of a second between the two of them, maybe even less than a 1/5 of a second. Virage hangs out the rear of that McLaren as they go through the corner. Rose has a run. He is about a 1/10 of a second behind. He is basically bumper to bumper, but he's going to back out. He wants Virage to go deep, but Rose may have backed out too much. He immediately gets hit from behind by Maverick, and Virage now opens up a half-second lead on Rose. Rose backed out too much, and while he will get a little bit of a draft on Virage, that's going to open up the gap massively in favor of Virage. I think that's going to be stint victory for Virage. And even if it's not stint victory for Virage, because Railgun could still be a factor here, the fact that Virage has already disposed of Maverick, I think we are going to see that NWR team end up on the overall top very, very shortly here. Probably by the end of this stint. All right, through the final corner once again. All 3 of our leaders having trouble getting by. Look at this. LES Railgun has already made his way up into the 5th position, now putting his pressure on Yokimbo in the currently highest running Lamborghini. Looks inside, looks outside. Not going to make the move. Not here, not this time. That number 42 trying to be reserved, trying to think of when the best time to make the moves are, so he's not wasting time fighting with other people. The leaders are not super far out. If Railgun can get by Yokimbo very quickly here, he'll have a chance to still run down the leaders and steal another stint victory. Yokimbo is putting on one heck of a defense. They both are in the same car. They know the strengths and weaknesses of the car. It's going to come down to who has the better tune and who is the better driver. Yokimbo went way too wide there coming out of the 180. And now here comes Railgun on the inside. He'll clear him before they even get to the braking zone. Railgun's going to go from near the rear of the grid all the way up to 4th already in just 6 laps, and he's only about 2.5 seconds off of the leaders right now. Speaking of the leaders, Rose did not back off of Virage nearly as much this time. He stays right behind Virage's machine as they go through Maggots and Beckett's. The gap is only about 1/4 of a second, maybe a little bit more, as they come onto the longest straight again. Does Rose have the confidence to try and send for a big move for this lead here? McLaren on McLaren action. Rose is not going to go for a big send this time. Maverick is just barely holding on to the draft of these 2 ahead. He just does not have what it takes to fight with these 2 ahead. The draft is the only thing keeping him in contention right now. He makes a little bit of contact with Rose there. Viraj and Rose both upset their cars a bit, going over that big inside sausage curb, but it's not going to compromise their lines too much. Rose now falls to about 6/10 off of Viraj, and while the draft is there, it's just not enough. Viraj is slowly scooting away from Rose, and if Railgun catches Maverick and Rose, that's going to let Viraj just absolutely rush off into the distance as Railgun has to struggle fighting with them. Now Harry Paradise is alongside Kimbo, McLaren versus Lamborghini again. The McLaren on the outside, the Lamborghini high-centered his inside tires on those red curbs, though. You don't want to be side-by-side through those corners. Big twitch by Lambo as he hit the inside curbs again. That'll be enough to unsettle the car and give Harry Paradise the position. Unless Kimbo goes for a deep dive. He's trying to go for a deep dive. Is he going to go for a deep dive? He cannot go for the deep dive. He sure thought of it, sure tried, but could not make it stick. Not that time. Meanwhile, in the top three is still Viraj, Rose, Maverick. Maverick is still within 3/4 of a second, only off the back of the draft, and the fact that Viraj and Rose are not putting out perfect laps thus far. They're just staying close enough that they're kind of compromising each other's laps, trying to cover each other off, and that is the only thing keeping Maverick with these top two at the moment. Again, Rose backed off potentially way too much. Yeah, Rose backed off way too much again, going through Maggots and Beckett's, and now that gap is so big, Rose might have lost the draft to Viraj. No, he still has the draft, closing down, and he's bringing Maverick with him. Could he get them? He could not catch him by the braking zone this time. I think this is over. I don't think Rose has what it takes to fight with Viraj. The only person who might be able to fight with Viraj will be Railgun, but the big thing is that Railgun, that team is recovering from a lap 1 disconnect in Stint 3. That team, unless they pull off some Herculean performances, they are not in contention for the overall win. Viraj had a big twist there going through the final quarter. That brings Rose back to the fray. He's back within 1/3 of a second of Viraj as they go through turn 1 once again now. And Rose backs out in turn 1, and the gap starts opening back up in Viraj's favor all over again. And Maverick is just kind of sitting here like he is sitting in the chair at a hotel, like Russian air defense, just not able to do anything to these missiles that are the McLarens ahead of him. Railgun now within 2 seconds of the leader. He is just outside of drafting range from Maverick. Razor's starting to recover up the grid. He has moved up to 7th now, gotten by Kimbo. Oh, big slide by Viraj. And that's going to give Rose a chance to close the gap down just a little bit here. Gets it down to within 1/3. Now within 1/4 of a second. Now within 1/5 of a second. He's right there to the rear wheel of Viraj again. Just 1/10 of a second separates them. But Viraj has a nice clean run through there. And now there'll be not quite nose to tail on the run down to Maggots and Beckett's. And Railgun is there. We're right on board with Railgun as he watches the top 3 ahead, navigating the most technical section of the circuit here. Railgun has disposed of Harry Paradise and Chungus. They had nothing to respond to him. Into the final chicane once more. For a second, third, all kind of upsetting themselves, hitting that red sausage curb as they turn into the chicane. Everyone seems to be fine coming onto the straight, but Railgun is now within 1.1 second exactly of the leader. So Railgun is now gaining a draft off of these 3 ahead of him. Maverick looking to try and make a move on Rose. Rose continuing to harass Viraj at the head of the field. Nose to tail pretty much, and now Maverick looks to the inside of Rose, but does not have the power or the grip. He has to back out, and now here comes Railgun. Railgun pulls up alongside Maverick. It took Maverick the entirety of the stint in Stint 3 to fall to 4th place. Now it might only take him less than 10 laps to fall to 4th place here in this stint. And Railgun's already cleared Maverick as if Maverick was barely even an issue. And now they fire off down onto the old start-finish straight again. Rose still runs right behind Virage. The question is just going to be, how long will it take for Railgun to dispose of Rose? But even then, I don't know. Virage might legitimately be fast enough. He might be able to run down Virage and overtake him, even if Virage opens up a gap. Railgun and that Lamborghini, that number 42 Lamborghini, is basically in a zone of their own today. He's going to have the draft off of both McLarens ahead. Maverick has immediately lost the draft to those three. He is completely out of contention. So the Chevy is going to be not only out of contention for Stint win or Stint podium, he's also going to be likely seeing his team drop out of the overall lead. His teammates in Stint 5 and 6 are going to have to dig really deep. Heading down to the final chicane again. Railgun still being relatively relaxed, not going for any big crazy moves for right now. Down the start-finish straight again. Railgun pretty much tucked up behind TBR Rose. Rose is staying just close enough to Virage. They still gain a draft off of the leader right now. Under the bridge again. Accelerating out. Boy, Rose and Railgun both got really wide out of the 180 there. That actually let Virage open up the gap just a bit. Now, Rose has the draft on Virage, uses that to close down, and he's dragging Railgun with him as he does so. But it seems like for the moment, the top three are content to run in this order, just about nose to tail. Virage is very, very slowly trying to pull away from Rose. Oh, big twitch by Rose. That's going to kill their momentum coming onto the straight. And here comes Railgun. Railgun pulls along the outside. And that's over. There was not a thing that Rose could do. Rose backed out really early. Does he have engine damage or something? No engine damage. He just backed out. So Railgun now up to second. Now the question is, how long will it take Railgun to catch and dispose of Virage? He's in Virage's draft. Not in a position to start really putting the screws to him yet, though. I think he's just going to wait. Wait until he's on a nice straightaway. Use the draft to close in. .42 pulls up behind once more. Within a third of a second under braking. This is going to be the interesting part. This could be where Railgun makes his move. He's got a fantastic draft off the back of that McLaren now. Closing in. Does he go for the move? Virage was a little bit sideways under braking. Railgun just slightly touches him. He kisses him like you kiss your sister when you first see her for the first time after a year on Christmas holiday. Now I come out of the 180 and back onto the old start-finish straight again. Bit of a slide there by Virage from the rear of the car. Railgun is there. Does Railgun try to go for a big dive going into Maggots and Beckett's? He's thinking of it, but he's not going to go for it. Not this time. Rose is still close enough to get a bit of a draft off of Railgun in some of these straightaways, but Rose is, for all intents and purposes, out of contention of this. It is Railgun versus Virage for the Stint win here. Virage defends the outside. Railgun not going to push the issues. Content to run behind for the moment. through the final chicane. And they'll start lap 12. We're anticipating the majority of the field will start pitting in about 3 laps time. Still tucked up behind the NWR machine. Real quickly, let's look at the tire life of our top 3. Virage, 43.2% tires. Railgun, his tires are at 42%, so he is much better off on tire life. And Rose, who is now losing the plot, 40.4. So actually, Rose has better tires than the 2 drivers ahead, but they just don't have the lap times to really take advantage of it. Potentially, we could see Rose maybe get some advantage of it because they might be able to go an extra lap or 2 farther than these 2. But now Railgun's gotten to the inside of Virage. Virage is wide. Virage is sliding really wide. Completely lost control the moment he was knocked off circuit. Railgun goes to the lead. It took him 12 laps, but Railgun has gone to the top. But Virage, is he done yet? Ooh, Lambo gets really sideways, and Virage has a run. Virage is right there. They're going to be side by side on the run down to Maggots and Beckett's. Who backs out? Who's going to go deep? Who's going to back out? NWR is going to go deep, and he gets it. He gets the position back. So it is not over yet. Railgun back behind Virage all over again, and they have brought Rose back into the fray, but Virage hits the grass on the inside. Railgun did not have the same issue. Railgun is going to blitz Virage by the time they get to the braking zone. Does Virage try and go for another big Hail Mary move into the braking zone? No, he looks to the outside instead, trying to stay in the draft of the Lamborghini. There is already a car. That is Fat Mark, who's just ahead of him. How are they already catching Fat Mark? I do not know. Oh, they put the bumper to him, and Rose put the bumper to Virage as well. That's going to unsettle all 3 of our leaders just a bit here. The Lambo is wide. Railgun is very wide. Virage has a better run. Virage gets to his inside. Railgun leads at the line, but Virage has the insides. They go down to turn number 1. And through turn 2, the advantage will then go to the Lamborghini. But Virage will have the chance to go deep under braking if he wants in turn 3, and that's exactly what he does. He goes nice and deep under braking in turn 3. Fat Mark moves off the track to not compromise these 2. And Railgun pulls it off. Railgun finally gets the spot and immediately opens the gap up to about over a third of a second. Now the draft will help drag Virage a little bit closer into this, but Virage now has to worry about TBT Rose behind him all over again. Virage goes deep, maybe a bit too deep, into the braking zone. Oh, this time it's Railgun who's wide, and Virage gets to his inside. Railgun is able to put the power down, though, and keep himself ahead of the McLaren. Oh, Virage went deep and hit Railgun in the rear. And he's done it again. He hit him a second time there through Maggots and Beckett's. All right, now Virage closing in again. He's got a fantastic draft this time. Rose is too far back to do anything, so Virage can make a move if he wants. Does he go inside or outside? He looks to the inside. He's going to try and go deep into the inside. He makes contact with the Lamborghini, squeezes the Lamborghini a little bit wide. He's got the nose ahead. Now they're on the rundown. They'll race down to the final chicane. They make door-to-door contact again. Railgun goes really deep under braking. Virage is going to try and cross him over. Can he make it work? Can he make the crossover work? He did. He's back to the inside. Side by side as they come to the final corner again. The Lamborghini is wide, and at the line, this time it was Virage who led by the smallest amount. Lambo outside in turn 1, and he'll complete the overtake. Now we see Virage kind of fall off. He'll actually fall back to being side by side with Rose. Just didn't have a good run through turns 1 or 2 there. This actually kind of brought Maverick back into the fray briefly. And now Virage has to try and use the draft to close back in on Railgun all over again. We'll see pit stops coming up very shortly here. It may just come down to pit stops. Because although Railgun is absolutely faster than Virage, he is not fast enough to just dispose of the McLaren. Not yet, at least. And Maverick has closed back in. He is now at the back of this fight. Maverick would love so desperately to see something go wrong for Virage. Gap is now almost half a second between Railgun and Virage. And while the draft helps Virage a bit, I think this fight might be all but over. Virage is able to keep the gap a little bit less than half a second through Maggots and Beckett's as they come onto the longest straightaway again. He is not close enough to make a move, not this time. Okay, do they pit this lap or do they wait another lap? That is going to be the question. Because if they wait another lap, TBR Rose could be in a really good spot because Rose has been taking care of their tires better than our leaders. Railgun gets that rear into that Lambo, all sorts of sideways there. And no, Virage says, screw this, I can't beat Railgun. He's pitting now. He's not the only one. Harry Paradise is going to go ahead and pit as well. So what of Rose? Is Rose close enough to do anything to LES Railgun? Reminder, Rose has been a little bit better on tire life. If they are close enough, if they're within the draft, they might be the driver who is able to put Railgun under pressure here. While on the other hoof, Virage is going to try and be running in relatively clean air afterwards. But that's the other thing. If Virage ends up in traffic, then that's going to derail any advantage they would have had of pitting a lap early. I got bad news for Virage. He has fallen all the way back to 10th. But the good news is it looks like he is in relatively clean air. He is still ahead of Harry Paradise and about 3 seconds between himself and the next driver on track. So they should be in clean air. Meanwhile, Rose has caught Railgun on the circuit. Again, Rose has been taking care of his tires better than Railgun has. Both cars run a little bit wide there. So now, does Rose have anything for Railgun? It does not look like it. He's right there behind the Lambo. Not going to go for a move in Maggots and Beckett's, I'd imagine. But he might try to set himself up for a good exit. If Railgun knows what he's doing, he's going to back up Maggots and Beckett's as much as possible just to keep Rose from getting alongside of him. Out of the S's, they put the power down. Rose is still a little less than a third of a second behind the Lamborghini. Using the draft, now closing down, but I don't think they're going to be close enough to make any big moves. And again, they're both likely going to be pitting this time by. Rose is not going to make a big move. He stays behind the Lamborghini, but he is not going for a move. Are they pitting this time? Yes, they are. Railgun pits. Rose pits. I imagine the majority of the field is going to pit this time. So now we look at Virage. Where is Virage going to end up in relation to Railgun and Rose? Everyone in the top 8 has gone ahead and pitted. Everyone in the top 9 pits. So yeah, Virage is just kind of the wild man out here when it comes to strategy right now. He was hoping the undercut would work, but the thing with the undercut is that you'll have to pay the piper. You're going to be dealing with more worn tires at some point later in the event, one way or another. Still, Virage has been in clean air while Railgun and Rose has still had to contend with each other. Has a lap in clean air worked out in Virage's favor. He's already up to 4th. Can he clear Maverick? He clears Maverick. Can he catch Rose or Railgun? No, he's behind them both. Rose and Railgun are still ahead of Virage. If anything, this worked out fantastically for Rose. Rose is now the driver ahead of Virage, and he's the one putting the pressure on Railgun now. So once again, the undercut just does not work, it seems. And now it is Rose who is going to be putting the pressure on Railgun. Rose has not been as fast as Virage, but Rose has been really good at conserving tires, and Rose seemed to be able to put the screws to Railgun near the end of the tire life. But now we're back at the start of the tire life, when Railgun had to fight his way through the field earlier, while Rose was fighting but not nearly as aggressively or in the same way. I have a feeling that this is only going to be a gap we'll see just gradually open up bigger and bigger as the laps take away. Rose is not saying die, but I would say die right now. I think this fight may be all but over as long as Railgun doesn't damage the car or disconnect, considering that happened last stint to that Lamborghini. Good run by Rose. Oh, the Lambo's wide. The Lambo drifted a little bit wide, and that brought Rose right up to him. Rose looking to the outside. And Railgun moves over just a bit to deny Rose the chance to try and go the long way around in the chicane. But Railgun is not invincible. And Rose is taking advantage of it. Rush down now into turn 1. And coming down now to turn 2. Now turn 3, the heavy braking zone. Mid-corner, I feel like Rose is faster than Railgun. On corner exit, though, I think Railgun may be faster. But again, I can't really tell who's got the advantage when it comes to top end because both drivers have benefited massively off of draft as this has gone on. Onto the old start-finish straight once again. Lambo's wide. Is Rose going to go for a big move? Is Rose going to try and send it into Maggots and Beckett's? Not this time. Being a little bit more reserved. Doesn't want to try and lead to an incident. This duo is now scooted away from Virage. They have lost Virage. So Virage has lost the draft off of this duo. Also, Maverick has been caught by Harry Paradise. We are going to have to take a Twitch mandated ad break, but we are going to ride on board for a full flying lap here with Rose as he continues to pursue LES Railgun here at Silverstone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Silverstone as Rose continues to hang out in Railgun's draft, but does not seem to have anything for him. We have had our first dropout, and that is VER Razor. We're going to try and reach out to Razor, see if he wants to give a interview. But it's a shame for a driver who started up in the top 5, and now a disconnect is going to shunt that team well down the order. It seems like with the exception of Virage's team and Maverick's team, and to a lesser extent Harry Paradise's team, this might end up being a result just based off of performing the best when you are on track, because just being able to stay on track all event long has been a real big struggle throughout the day today. Rose continues to run in Railgun's draft, but it does not seem to have what it takes to take a fight to him. A little bit farther down the grid, this is for 4th and 5th position. This is Harry Paradise trying to get by AFC Maverick. Maverick, it took him all stint long in stint 3 to fall from 1st to 4th. He's already fallen to 4th within the first 12 laps of this stint and might even fall out of the top 5 depending on how the rest of this goes. Maverick just cannot seem to come to grips with that car today. Out of the S's and now on to the longest straightaway once again for this duo. And we see Harry Paradise is going to try and go the long way around the outside of Maverick. Squeezes down on Maverick, not willing to make it work. Can he do the crossover? Not really, because Maverick, while he slides wide, doesn't slide wide enough to give Paradise a chance. Now he's going to try and go the long way around, or maybe not. No. Is he going to try and do the crossover? No, because Maverick had a bit of a hiccup, and that slowed both of their cars down by a significant amount. So no change yet between these two for the 4th and 5th position. All right, farther up the grid, at the front, Rose continues to run just behind Railgun by about a third to a half of a second, but has not been able to put any serious pressure on the Lamborghini as the two of them continue to slowly pull away from NWR Virage. For the overall event win, it is Virage versus Maverick, and that gap between them is about 4.5 seconds right now in Virage's favor. And we're a little bit over a third of the way through. If this race continues at the rate we are going, we're likely going to see that gap be about, 13 and a half, 14 seconds in Virage's favor over Maverick. Again, that's not counting how penalties might work out, because Maverick ended up with a lot of penalties in the last stint, so we don't know how their penalties are going to be. We'll take a look at penalties a little bit later in the event, but right now, we're continuing to see if Rose has anything for Railgun. Railgun continues to lead right now, 17.5% on the tire life. You look at TBR Rose right now, 17.4% on the tire life at the moment. And Maverick and Paradise continue to slowly push each other backwards as they continue to fight for this position. Out of the final corner, now onto the start-finish straight again. Oh, did it happen? Oh, it did! Just as I turned away, it happened. Paradise finally completes the overtake on AFZ Maverick. Took a lot longer than anticipated, but just as it happens. Now, it's not over yet. If Paradise makes a mistake, Maverick is going to be gaining a great tow. And already has good top end in that Chevy. If Paradise has a mistake, Maverick could fight back, but I have a feeling this might be over. Coming down to Maggots and Beckett's. We have seen Harry Paradise in every stint he has been in. He has come home with a top 5 result. This is going to be Maverick's best chance to try and fight back. Does he have an answer? Does he have anything for the McLaren that's beat him? It does not appear so. McLaren's run second, third, and fourth on the racetrack right now. The Chevy looks to the outside, trying to set up for maybe an overcut or switchback, I mean. Oh, it might have worked. The Raven machine left the inside lane open to the Chevy, but the Chevy hits that red curb on the inside, gets a little sideways, and falls back behind Paradise. Nothing could be done there. Meanwhile, back in the lead, Rose continues to run just behind Railgun, but the gap seems to be slowly opening up more and more as this goes on. Now it's almost at 7/10. Now Rose is just close enough. He'll get the draft and use that to close it down a little bit here. I think this is over. I think Rose may have lost the draft. Oh, and the Lambo goes into the dirt just a bit there. And that's going to help Rose. Rose is now back in slipstream range of Railgun. Yes, as Railgun finally broke the draft, he had dropped a tire into the dirt, killed some of his momentum, and Rose is back in the draft range. This duo have pulled about 2 seconds on NWR Virage in third position at this stage of the event. And this is honestly the longest fight that we have had, although really it's more of a stalking battle. But it is the longest fight we have seen all event long for the lead. We have had fights at the front, but normally they have been very, very short. They only last about the first 7 to 8 laps, and then they dissipate. We have had drivers basically within a second of each other at the head of this field from the word go all the way now to lap 22. And Maverick has gotten back by Harry Paradise somehow, apparently. So I wonder if Paradise may have gone wide and got compromised there in the big braking zone, because now Maverick is back ahead of him. But both of them are now more than 6.5 seconds behind NWR Virage. So while Virage is not on track to win the stint, he is on track to inherit the overall lead of the event with 2 stints left. And Railgun is in the car that was leading at the end of the first 2 stints, but didn't even get to complete a single lap in stint 3. They are just here for the money. They are here to just destroy the rest of the field, insult, belittle the rest of the field for not being able to keep up. They can't steal the win from them because of how much time was lost, but they can at least humiliate and mock everyone else on track. Rose has lost the draft again, I believe. And this time, Rose is the one that goes into the dirt. That's it. The fight for the win is over. LES Railgun will win the event, assuming he does not damage his car or have a disconnect. But now that Rose has lost the draft to Railgun, now the question changes. Does Virage have what it takes to try and run down TBR Rose? As we are about 40% of the way through the event, and then between Maverick and Paradise, is there anything that this duo can do to close down on Virage? Because the fight for the stint win is over. Oh, Maverick into the dirt on the outside. It's going to hurt his top speed a bit. It'll keep Harry Paradise right behind him for the moment. Oh, that Chevy left the inside door way open. Here comes the McLaren. Harry Paradise inside, Maverick outside. It's a drag race down to turn number 1. This should go in Paradise's favor without too much issue. No, he backs out and Maverick holds on to 4th for the moment. But they have now fallen about 8 seconds off of Virage, and the gap continues to bleed open. Paradise gets to the inside of Maverick. Maverick's going to try and squeeze him. Now he goes wide. He wants to take a more traditional line. They make door-to-door contact through the corner. And that will give it to Paradise. No, he couldn't get the turn and done well enough. Maverick's going to get back by him. He had the line, but the car could not follow it. Maverick is back in the fourth, but again, the gap between Virage and Maverick continues to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and to add on top of that all, Virage has caught Rose. Now reminder, Virage pitted a lap earlier than Rose, and he's been burning his tires up a lot faster anyway, so even if Virage is faster than Rose, he's going to be dealing with some tire fall off a lot faster than Rose will be. But it looks like that may not matter. Has Rose injured the engine or something? He is now hemorrhaging time. No signs of engine damage. He just does not seem to be able to keep up with Rose or Railgun on merit. He's only able to keep up off the back of draft. Side by side between the two McLarens as they rush down now into the final chicane. And with this, Railgun already has a 3-second lead and is gone. The Stint victory is over. But the fight for the win, for the overall event, it's going in Virage's favor right now. But a lot of things could still happen. Oh, I may have found a way around it. Let's see. Hopefully this works. Hopefully this works. Hopefully the entirety of the event isn't completely screwed. Biggest problem I have is that I do not ever run my Xbox this hot, this long. I have never, ever, I never run my Xbox this long, and my Xbox is overheating, so I am very concerned about the game crashing again, because there is no gap between the stints where I can afford to turn off my Xbox and let it cool off. Normally in a tour event, I can get away with that. I can't do that today. So, it looks like I may have no paint schemes. Yeah, I have no paint schemes anymore. So, Railgun has run away from Virage. Here you are. Don't know how accurate this is going to be outside of the top 5, sadly. Virage runs second. Rose barely holding on to third right now. And yeah, we have lost all paint schemes, it would appear. So, sorry guys, that's what happens. AFC Maverick still runs 5th, but he is now 10 seconds off of Virage, and we are still not yet halfway through. We're a little bit under halfway through. We are likely going to see Maverick drop another 20 seconds to NWR in the field. I do not know how accurate the remaining spots on track are. I've only focused on the top 5 for most of the event. This is Lulba here, running in 6th position. I still have his paint scheme, interestingly enough. So Lulba in the Hatsune Miku machine. Then after that is one lad who is in the blue and white McLaren. So we've got his paint scheme at least. Then you have PTZ Chungus, who is in the 666 Aston Martin that we are not able to see the scheme of. Then we have Zokimbo, who started up in the top 5, but has just been gradually hemorrhaging time as the event has gone on. After that is AER Wolf here in the number 26 Racing for Tina machine. Then you have AFMG Vorm, who is in another one of the McLarens. I think the last of the McLaren still running on track. After that is Izzy. Izzy runs in 12th, the highest of all of the BMWs at the moment. Then you have Batman, who is 13th, a little bit more than a full minute off the lead. He is just barely staying ahead of Harry Tools, who is in a Mercedes. Then you have Wind Charger, who is the last of the 2 BMWs right now. And then last place is TBR Fat Mark, who is 2 laps out this stage in his Mercedes. Oh, now we've got the paint scheme for Maverick back at least. So some of the paint schemes have loaded, but not all of them. So we should be expecting to see the next round of pit stops any moment now. Let's see if this is accurate. Yeah, this is still properly up to date. So again, we are expecting to see drivers start making their second round of pit stops at the end of this lap. Rose continues to run just within draft of Virage. Railgun, now that he has broken the draft, is absolutely scooted away. But for Rose, second place might still be a legitimate thing. The big thing to consider for Rose is that while he does not have the speed of Virage or Railgun, Rose has draft. And as long as he has the draft and he's able to save his tires the way he has been able to, he's going to likely be able to beat Virage going forward, especially because Virage pitted a lap earlier than Rose, Railgun, and most of the rest of the field early on. So Virage is on much, much more worn tires and basically has to pay the piper when it comes to tire life. At some point, they're going to be dealing with some very worn tires. Rose, on the other hand, has been doing a fantastic job balancing their tires as the event goes forward here. Also, to those of you who said that casting 12 hours is crazy, yeah, it is crazy. I'm probably going to end up casting for something closer to 14 hours, considering all the delays. Bit of a twitch and slide there by Rose. So these cars have now loaded in their paint schemes. So some of these cars are finally starting to load in their paint schemes, bit by bit. And Harry Paradise pits, and so does Maverick. So Paradise and Maverick both pit at the same time, and they're both pitting a little bit earlier than anticipated. Now, there is a little bit of transmission damage to Maverick for Harry Paradise. Does he have any damage? A little bit of engine damage. But they have pitted a little bit earlier. Oh, Rose is by Virage. Rose got by Virage. Has Virage pushed his tires too far? Are they cooked? They are cooked. As the streamers like to say, chat, the tires are cooked. Ladies and gentlemen, NWR Virage may have pushed the tires just a little bit too far. So Rose now not only takes the second place from Virage, but now has already broken away from the draft. They are closing in on Windcharger, who is the first of the two BMWs to go a lap down thus far in the event. And Virage is just hemorrhaging time. This might be something that Maverick needed. Maverick pitted at this lap. He went 15 laps and then 14 laps. Virage went 14 and now is trying to go 15, and he is going to be hemorrhaging time. This could work out in Maverick's favor. Speaking of which, where is Maverick on track? Well, he has ended up a little bit behind PTG Chungus, and he has lost touch with Harry Paradise. We're not at 2 hours of delay overall yet. We're at like an hour and 10 minutes or so of delay right now. But considering that we consistently are having the same problems, we are going to finish this with 2 hours of delay by the end of this. We're not at 2 hours of delay yet, but we're going to be. Our leader, Railgun, finally comes into the pits. Rose has a 0.8 second advantage over Virage. But Virage has paid the piper. He is now back on sync with the top two in tires. This could be bad news for Rose because Virage can now meet him on the same strat. But where is Maverick and, to a lesser extent, Harry Paradise going to be in relation to Rose and Virage? They are both about 10 seconds off, but they have gotten the undercut as they came out on track. They came into the pits and then back out a little bit earlier than our top four right now. I imagine one land and Harry Paradise, but no, one lad stays out. Harry Paradise obviously stays out. Now we see Chungus come in. So big Chungus pits. Joe Kimbo pits. Wolf pits as well. Lalba is still in pit lane. Where is Maverick and Harry Paradise going to end up in relation to our top four? Well, here's your answer. Railgun's gone. Rose is gone. Virage is gone. In fact, one lad is still ahead. So yeah, it doesn't matter. It may have been a one-lap advantage, potentially by paying a bit earlier, especially compared to Virage, who completely hemorrhaged a bunch of time. But it's likely not going to matter because Paradise and Maverick have just both lost so much bloody time. There's just nothing they can do. One lad now is in fourth in this blue and white McLaren. With this in mind, I think that is almost everyone has made their stop except for one lad and AFZ Izzy. Game seems to want me to look at Izzy here for a second. So here's Izzy, the highest of running of the two BMWs at this stage of the event. Also, Batman has yet to make a stop, and Windcharger has yet to make their second stop as well. We are a little bit over halfway through the event right now. How much longer is one lad going to stay out here? Oh, he's going to have to pit this time. He's good on fuel, but he's going to have to pit this time by. If anything, he's a little bit overloaded on fuel. So, the fight now is for second on track between Rose and Virage. Rose has it, Virage wants it. And between Virage and Maverick, the most important thing, that gap is now at a little bit over 11 seconds. Although Maverick has just got by Lalba in the Audi. Maverick trying desperately just to stay in the top 5 so he can have a shot at keeping his team in contention. He needs his teammates to be able to dig really deep and pull something out here in the next 2 stints. They can't, I hate to say it, I don't like to bash on a driver like this, but this team cannot afford to put Maverick in for the remaining 2 stints. They have lost way too much time with Maverick in the car. They need to put another driver in for the remaining 2 stints if possible. So one lad has pitted, and that's going to shunt him down to about the 7th position for now. Izzy also is going to go ahead and make their pit stop. Yeah, one lad should be clear of Chungus, so I think one lad will be in 7th on merit. Railgun staying up to be about 5 seconds ahead of TBR Rose, and Virage is slowly running down on Rose. Now again, Rose has been a little bit better on salvaging tire life, but Virage is faster, and Virage is going to have the draft that they can use to put Rose under pressure here very shortly. Lalba, who is your second different driver thus far in that Audi, continues to hang out just behind Maverick. At the moment, Maverick slides really wide as that number 45 Audi tucks up behind. Do you want to go for a big move here or not? Nothing here yet, nothing crazy. Here comes the move now, though. As Paradise is compromised on the exit of Maggis and Beckett's, and Lalba going to try and go the long way around the outside. Maverick goes for a really deep dive, denies both drivers the inside line. They're going to be in a drag race again as they come down to the final chicane. But Lalba has the car about 2/3 of the way ahead, and he's by! Lalba clears Maverick. And Maverick now falls out of the top 5. And for the AFZ team, it goes from bad to worse. A chance at winning the event overall rapidly slipping away. Meanwhile, NWR Virage, while Rose ahead, is someone he may have to contend with for the overall event. Realistically, I believe that Virage is well positioned to bring home this win for the NWR team right now. Maverick is not done with Lalba, but it's kind of like a losing battle. It's very obvious that this car does not have what it takes to keep up. He's staying just close enough to hang off the draft of the Audi for now. Windcharger is back on the lead lap. Did I miss something? I thought Windcharger was a lap down already. Okay, maybe it was only because of the way the pit stops worked out. All right, we're going to go ahead at this point and ride on board for a flying lap with LES Railgun, the man who is likely going to dominate this stint and bring home the 3rd out of 4 stint victories for the team. We'll be back momentarily here at Silverstone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to Silverstone. We have about 23 laps left, so we're about 55 to 60% of the way through the event. LES Railgun started well down the order, but has absolutely been flying. Just look at the changes up and down the grid. Railgun has gained 11 spots. He's basically started in 12th position. He has gone from 12th all the way up into first spot. Rose has gone from 3rd to 2nd. Viraj has gone from 2nd to 3rd. Harry Paradise has gained 2 spots. Lulba has gained 9 spots. So they start back in 14th. They've worked their way up to 9th. And again, Lulba, that team had a disconnected stint too. They have lots of good, competent drivers. But with that disconnect, they're going to constantly be starting in the back and will have to be finding their way up through the grid throughout most of the event. AFC Maverick started on the pole, but it only took him about 12 laps to fall back to 4th. And now he has fallen out of the top 5, and that team is likely going to lose the overall lead. This one lad has gone from 15th to 7th. So that's another team that has fast drivers, but due to a disconnect earlier, it's just kind of screwed. PTG Shungus has fallen down to 8th. Joe Kimbo has fallen down 5 spots to 9th. But again, Joe Kimbo is one of the drivers who were one of the teams that haven't really been fast, but they have been able to finish all the stints. So that means that each stint they start really high up and then have to deal with faster drivers who have had lag outs rushing by them the next few laps afterwards. Both AER Wolf and AFMG Vorm have hammered 3 spots each. AFC Izzy started in 16th and has worked their way up to 12th thus far. Harry Toofs is actually running exactly where they started. Botman, Windcharge, and TBR Fat Mark have all dropped 5 positions each. They were running in 9th, 10th, and 11th before this event started. Frustrating thing for TBR Fat Mark is that his teammate put that car in the top 5 positions, and Fat Mark has just not been able to maintain that. It's a little bit frustrating, I would imagine, for the team to have some wildly opposite performances. If you're always stuck in the back, okay, you deal with it. If you're always at the front, you're happy. But if you have one moment, you're right there at the very front, one moment, you're right there at the back, it's going to be one of the most frustrating things you're going to have to deal with. So as we look at the times sheets right now, Viraj and Rose continue their spat for 2nd and 3rd position. Viraj doesn't need this, but I guarantee you he definitely wants it because Rose's team is 3rd in overall distance, and they are also likely to go ahead and leapfrog Maverick. So this fight between this duo could end up being the fight for the overall event win right now. Now Viraj should end up ahead of Rose. By the end of this, should maintain a gap over Rose as the leader, but they're going to be as close to Rose as possible. Real quick, let's go ahead and look at the penalties thus far. Railgun, 0.7 seconds worth of penalty. Rose has somehow earned no penalties yet. Viraj and Harry Paradise both have half a second. Lalba has none. Maverick doing a little bit better with penalty management. They're only at 9/10 of a second. This one lad is at 1.4 seconds of time penalties. Joe Kimbo has no penalties. PTT Chungus has earned 2 seconds of penalties. AER Wolf has no penalties. Vorm has 1.6 seconds of penalties. Izzy has 0.7, and Harry Toofs have 0.7 worth of time penalties. And Batman has the most penalties thus far with 2.8 seconds, as Windcharger and Fat Mark both have no penalties thus far. And for those of you who do not remember, it is possible to submit to the officials up to 3 appeals per stint for penalties that the game give. That does not mean that if you send the appeal, the penalty is removed. But if you go off circuit, you earn a 0.10 penalty. You go off circuit again, you earn a 0.20 penalty. Go off circuit a 3rd time, you earn a 0.1 penalty. And go off circuit a 4th time, you get another 0.1 penalty. You can only appeal 3 of those. You're guaranteed to still have 1 of those penalties stick with you, and that's assuming that the officials say, yes, the penalties that the game give you were bullshit, we're going to restrict them from you later. A lot of drivers ended up with a significant amount of penalties, but the final result is going to be up in the air, and we won't really know what it is during the broadcast, sadly. For those of you who are involved in the Discord or follow the social media pages, you will have a better idea a few hours or maybe days after the event is over what the final results are, but we will only be able to tell you the unofficial preliminary results. We won't really have a good idea as to what the overall final results are going to be here, just because we don't know how many time penalties are going to get removed later. At saying that AFZ Izzy has left the group, I hope not. I hope that was a lie. I hope the game's lying to me. Nope. AFZ Izzy is our 2nd disconnect of the stint. Frustration. Seems like for the AFZ team, it just keeps going from bad to worse. We'll try to reach out to AFZ Izzy, see if they want to jump in and say anything. But frustration on top of frustration for both of the AFZ entry teams. Izzy wasn't even having a great time, though. Meanwhile, Farage continues to stalk and harass TBR Rose at the moment. This could end up being fight for the overall event win because, again, Railgun, that his teammate who ran in Stint 3, disconnected, wasn't even able to run a full lap. So they are way behind this duo in overall distance right now. It is Rose versus Virage at the moment. Virage keeps swinging from being within drafting range to out of drafting range. Virage is definitely faster, but Rose is doing a legitimately good job holding on right now. And again, the big thing is that Rose still has no penalties. Virage has incurred some penalties at this stage of the event. Most of the other battles have pretty much dissolved. There is a bit of a stalking fight where Chungus is stalking Joe Kimbo, but every other battle has pretty much dissolved at this point in the race. This fight is really the only one of merit left to focus on at this stage of the event. Everyone still has one more pit stop to make. We are expecting everyone's going to make their final stop between about lap 43 and 45. Some drivers may try to push out to the 46, but I think it's going to be between 43 and 45 for the rest of the field. Excuse me. We are at not quite 20 laps to go. When the leader hits the line, it'll be 20 laps to go, which would equate to roughly about 41, 42 minutes left in the event. Coming up on traffic, that is 13th place Batman, who the two McLarens are going to have to deal with here. Right on board for Raj. Let's see, is Rose going to be compromised by traffic in the form of Batman here? Yeah, that's a pretty significant compromise, I would argue. And for Virage, though, he'll be able to sneak right by, will not be held up by the Mercedes, and now immediately Virage is right back in drafting range. Therein lies the problem with blue flags. Blue flags sound great in theory, but in practice it all comes down to when you catch the other car. Gain a blue flag on a straightaway, no problem, just move into the other lane and let off the gas. Catch a blue flag in one of the slower, tighter chicane sections or Maggots and Beckett's. I'm sorry, the guy with the blue flag has nothing he can do. He's going to end up slowing the lead lap car down. Therein lies the biggest problem with blue flags. They're not going to be equally effective all across a track, across any track. Virage now runs within half a second of TBR Rose. They both pitted at the same time. Rose has been doing a slightly better job managing tires. Virage, at least early on, looked like they were faster than Rose. Now their pace seems to have equalized out just a little bit between the two of them. 32.5% there for Virage. For Rose, it is 30%. So yes, Rose is still doing a little bit better managing the tires going forward here. If they both pit on the same lap for their final stop, I think Rose would end up with a slight advantage just because they will not be bleeding off nearly as much time on the end lap from worn tires. And the gap between Maverick and Virage has opened up to about 16.5 seconds now. Again, like I said earlier, we're likely going to see that gap get to about 20 to 22 seconds between the two of them, and that will likely be enough to put Virage's team on top of the overall leaderboards. But TBR Rose's team is legitimately doing everything right to start chipping away at the NWR team's lead right now. It may come down to the question of who is better at managing penalties, and then obviously who is able to keep their cars running for the entirety of the stints here. McLaren's run. Second, third, and fourth on track. Fifth place, though, is the Audi of Lolba, who, due to a disconnect earlier, they started way down the order, but they have legitimately fought their way up to fifth position. As the event has gone on, this entrance seems to be getting stronger and stronger, but they think they've come on hot a little bit too late. We saw Kimi had kind of a rough stint 1, was really good in stint 2 before the disconnect, had a very good stint 3, and Lolba is having a very good stint 4, but I think they've come to life a little bit too late, and that coupled with the disconnect is likely going to keep them out of contention from anything close to a top 5 result here, unless a lot of more of our top runners start having disconnects here on this run down. Then you have AFZ Maverick, who is here in 6th position. He's still 16 seconds ahead of this one lad, so I think he'll likely be able to maintain most of that advantage. Then you'll have Joe Kimbo in the other Lamborghini. Let's go ahead. We're going to take 2 more ad breaks through the rest of this. We're going to take an ad break now, and then after they're done with their final round of pit stops, we'll take our final ad break, and then it will be down to the end. So we're going to ride on board with NWR Virage for a flying lap here around Silverstone as he continues to try and run down on TBR Rose here with about a third of the event left. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Silverstone here. Most of the battles on track have pretty much dissipated. We just have this prolonged stalking battle going on between TBR Rose and NWR Virage, and then we have a similar, though less significantly important one that's been going on between Jokimbo and PTC Shungus. But as I'm saying that, Shungus is starting to significantly hemorrhage time right now with a little bit of engine damage that's really not going to help them out whatsoever. 3 drivers have gone a lap down. 2 drivers have disconnected. Harry Toos will likely be the next driver that will go a lap down to LES Railgun. But I think with the way that this race is going, I think he'll be the last driver who will go a lap down before this is over here at Silverstone. We're expecting to see drivers making their final stop anywhere from 1 to 4 laps from now, depending on how far drivers want to push their tires. If you push far enough, potentially you could short fill, have a shorter stop and a lighter fuel load on the final sprint to the end. Again, I don't know how many people are actually going to want to try and do something like that. I don't think anyone in the top 3 would have any motivation to do that, but we may see someone farther down try something like that. Lolba has absolutely destroyed Maverick over the last few laps. Maverick is just kind of running no man's land all by themselves now, already almost at 50% tire life. And Maverick and Paradise pit at roughly the exact same time, so we're likely going to see them pit. Maybe not this lap, but likely the lap after this, and they'll have to stretch their tires about 15 laps afterwards. So it's not going to be looking great for Maverick or Paradise, but their gaps that they have should be good enough that should work out in their favor here. Actually, I'm going to take that back. Paradise is doing significantly better than Maverick on tire life. Paradise could probably go 2 more laps. Maverick can probably only go 1 more. Paradise is doing so much better on tire management right now. Gap between Rose and Virage is starting to open up just a little bit. It's been about a little bit more than a second the last few laps, which means that Virage is outside of Rose's draft window and cannot use the draft to try and help and close in. So for the moment, Rose seems to have either picked the pace up or Virage has seen his pace fall off a bit. And it seems like these two may end up finishing in this position. Again, we are anticipating that NWR Virage will be in the overall event lead. However, we also think that Rose is going to be able to set this up to start closing the gap down. It may come down to, again, a lot of different things, but I am curious to see who's going to take over for these two teams in the following and final 2 stints here. As a stopped car there, what is going on with Fat Mark? No damage, but the car has come to a complete stop. He's not in ghost mode, so whatever has happened, it's not been a disconnect issue by the looks of it, but he has come to a complete stop. Also, Harry Paradise paying a little earlier than anticipated. What is going on here? As we look at Fat Mark, who is last place, already 4 laps down, and limping around as if he has damaged the car. Alright, he's starting to move now. Okay, so Paradise and Maverick both are going to have to go 15 laps to the end here on their tires. So Paradise and Maverick are both likely to lose some time at the very tail end of this. The one driver that could end up benefiting might be this one here, Lullaby, in the Audi. The Audi driver here might be able to balance their tires a little bit better and run down and catch Harry Paradise in the last lap as Paradise's tires fall off. So that's definitely going to be something to keep an eye on. The gap between Rose and Virage continues to slowly open bigger and bigger. And also, to be fair, the gap between Railgun and Rose hasn't been explosively opening either. I thought that Railgun was going to rush off into the distance, but no. Rose is keeping the gap relatively honest. Railgun's likely still going to win this stint, but it may not be by some 20 seconds like we thought was going to be a case early on. That might be a little bit closer to like 10 seconds. So definitely interesting scenario. The one thing is, though, that's going to hurt Railgun and that team's chance to make up as much ground on the leaders, which are, again, we anticipate are going to be Rose and Virage. Oh, Railgun's pitting now. So he's going to be going 14 laps. Rose is pitting this time. Virage is pitting this time. All right, so our top 3 are pitting. It looks like everyone is now in the middle of their final round of stops. I'm curious to see, because I assume that Lullaby is going to pit this time as well. Where is Harry Paradise going to end up in relation to Lullaby? Paradise has finished top 5 in every single stint he's been in thus far. Likely going to be able to do that again, but I'm curious if it's going to be 4th or 5th, because there is a possibility that Lullaby might end up catching him near the very end of the event due to tire life management. Railgun's already out of pit lane. So is Rose, and now we see Virage coming out. Lullaby will take a little bit longer. They were behind Harry Paradise before Hoof. They're likely still going to be behind Harry Paradise. Boy, are they going to be behind. Yeah, that gap's going to be something like 6 seconds between the two of them. Although Lalba will have the ability to just gradually and consistently close the gap between the two of them down, it seems. Maverick is going to get by Joe Kimbo. Can he clear one lad, though? Yes, he'll clear one lad. So again, it does look like Maverick is in a position where... Well, Chungus hasn't made his final stop yet, has he? No. Okay. So yeah, Maverick should be in a position that they are guaranteed 6th place at the very minimum. And hello to Golden Rider. It has been a little bit. It is good to see you as we continue to run here in Stint 4 of 6 of the Silverstone 2,000 kilometers here, hosted by VER. So Harry Paradise is about 5 seconds ahead of Lalba. Lalba is going to have a tire advantage that they can press on Harry Paradise on the run to the end here. The gap between Rose and Virage hangs out about 1.6 seconds right now, sometimes a little less, sometimes a little bit more. Almost everyone has made their final stops. Windcharger has yet to make their final stops, so it's too... Or we're still waiting on PTG Chungus. Once Chungus makes a stop, we'll likely see him fall back to being behind Yokimbo for the 9th position on circuit here. It's a shame because I would have loved to see the DPRK boys go ahead and try to show up for this series. I do think they could have pulled off something nicely. It's a shame to see that you guys had to pull out. So Chungus is making his final stop now, and with that, that will conclude pit stops here for Stint 4 out of 6. The sun is starting to set on the circuit. Shadows are starting to get long. I believe the time does progress normally, so we are likely going to see the final stint be run in nighttime or near nighttime conditions here. Chungus still has not come out of pit lane. This has taken him a lot longer than I would anticipate. Finally, the car is moving. Goodness gracious. So we're going to go ahead, as we are coming down, it will be about, when the leader gets to line, it will be 12 laps left in the event. Everyone, well, except for Windcharger, but everyone has made their final stop. Everyone on the lead lap has made their final stop. So we're going to go ahead and ride on board with Harry Paradise for our final ad break in the race. And then when we come back, we will be on circuit to the end of this stint, to the checkered flag, as we see him go by. That is the, who is that? Is that Batman? I think that's Batman's car. Okay, but anyways, we're going to go ahead and take one last ad break in the middle of the event. When we come back, we will be here to the checkered flag, barring disconnect issues from me. Don't go away here at Silverstone. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the final run here in Stint 4 out of 6 at Silverstone. When this is over, we will have completed roughly about 1,333 kilometers of racing here today, and we'll still have about 667 kilometers more to go when this is over. NWR Virage is just hemorrhaging time now to TBR Rose, and Rose is actually starting to close the gap down between themselves and LES Railgun. Now, it's not like Railgun has any damage. I think Railgun is just managing their stuff, and Rose is likely up to their pace. I would not be surprised to see that, no, somehow Rose still does not have any penalties. But Rose does seem to be legitimately closing down a little bit on Railgun. So, that could get interesting. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think Rose is going to catch Railgun here by the end of it. But, there is an outside possibility that we see TBR Rose catch LES Railgun before the end of this. I would not put money on it, but it is a possibility. There's just not really a whole lot else to talk about at this stage of the event. Everyone else is pretty much spread out. There is a potential fight that we could see later between Harry Paradise and Lolba 9885, because Paradise paid a lap earlier. He is trying to nurse his tires for about 15 laps. And then, yes, Alexi, go ahead and dump that in chat. I am not going to block that. Just thank you for saying something before Hoof, so that way I didn't think it was spam. You can go ahead and dump it in the chat. Lolba, it has tires that are going to be roughly one lap cleaner, one lap fresher than Harry's. So if Harry deals with a significant amount of tire fall off at the very end, Lolba might catch him. That is a big gap. It's about 5 seconds between the two of them, but it is a possibility that they close down on each other just a little bit there. Other than that, there's not really a lot of other possibilities for closes that we will see. Chungus says the best tires out of everyone. He's got AER Wolf, who is running a little bit behind. And speaking of AER Wolf, as you can see on their car, they have a Racing for, I couldn't see that because the angle was not good. I apologize. They have a Racing Fortino logo on it that is part of a breast cancer awareness charity that this team is racing for during the event. I believe one of the team members are likely going to dump the link to the donation in my Twitch chat. I do want to make it very clear, I am not affiliated with this group. I do not even know this group. I'm not familiar with them. But it is something that a lot of the people here within VER has been pushing and talking a lot about. So if that's something you're interested in, that is likely something you'll be able to look up and see for yourself. But right now, AFMG Vorm just wants something to happen, something to fall his way so he can pull out a top 10 result here. I'm sorry, I said Vorm, I meant Wolf. Wolf is looking at BTG Chungus up the road. This will be the fight for 9th position. Wolf does seem to be slowly closing down on Chungus right now. Excuse me. Slowly, Wolf is closing down on Chungus. I don't know if he's going to be able to catch him and pass him. Again, Chungus is going to have a significant tire advantage over Wolf here near the very end of this. Real quickly, just looking at the head of the field, Railgun is seeing his lead over TBR Rose continue to slowly dribble away Again, I don't know if Rose is going to be able to catch him, but it is now repeatedly less than 4 seconds. Yeah, Rose has now closed the gap down to about less than 3.4 seconds. Again, I'm not sure how this is happening. This has been the Lamborghini that has been absolutely dominant in a zone of its own, but it is hemorrhaging time, not at a rapid pace, but it is bleeding off time right now. And the big thing to consider is that when penalties may come into play, if Rose ends up right behind Railgun, penalties may give the Stint victory to TBR Rose. Again, I don't think it's going to happen, but the gap is visibly shrinking between the top two. It has just now gone less than 3 seconds between Railgun and Rose at this stage of the event. It continues to shrink tighter and tighter. And when their leader hits the line, it will be 7 to go. If Rose closes by half a second a lap, each lap to the end, they're going to be there. No, there's no engine damage, at least not from what I'm seeing. My game is not showing any engine damage on Railgun's car. It says he has no damage on anything whatsoever. But he is legitimately hemorrhaging time here on circuit. It is getting concerningly close now. It is less than 3 seconds and continuing to slowly shrink down. Now, I do want to go ahead and suggest this as a possibility. The track temperatures may be cooling, and potentially the McLaren that Rose is in is better suited for the nighttime temps and the colder temps of the track as shade comes over it and drops the temperature of the track. That also drops the temperature of the tires, and that will cause the cars to handle differently. Now, the entire track is not covered by big shadows yet, but more and more of the track is becoming covered with shadows as this goes on. Rose is now within 2.5 seconds of Railgun. He closed by almost half a second this lap alone. This fight for the win could legitimately be on. Railgun felt like he had done everything perfect and just outright outdrove Rose and everybody else, but now the gap is starting to shrink. And if Rose finishes this with no penalties, Rose might be able to win this. May not even have to pass Railgun on track. If he's just right behind, it's going to be just running right behind. So, a tale of 2 races for TBR, as TBR Fat Mark is 5 laps down, not going to have a chance to complete their run, and even spent like about a minute just off track, just kind of cruising through the dirt for no reason. Awful time for Fat Mark. And yet TBR Rose is out here putting on what could end up being a legitimate fight for the Stint win. And again, the other thing to remember, Rose has been better at managing tires than Railgun. So Railgun's not going to suddenly pick up speed as it goes on. We are going to, oh my goodness, I can't believe you said that. I'm not going to say that Railgun's suddenly just going to open up time at the very end because the fuel load burns off, because Railgun has been burning through his tires throughout the event faster than Rose has. So this gap is only going to continue to swing in Rose's favor. It looks like this lap, though, the gap has stabilized a bit at about 2.5 seconds. I'm not seeing Rose completely chew away Railgun's gap to him this time. So maybe the gap has stabilized. Maybe Railgun has figured out a second win. Maybe Rose is backing off a bit. They're more interested in just not getting penalties. But the gap has, well, it's just gone below 2.5 seconds. So the gap is not closing at quite the same rate it was. There will be 6 laps to go at the line. Again, Rose doesn't have to pass Railgun. If Rose can just get right behind Railgun, just get within 0.7 of a second, they could steal the event win off the back of penalty. It seems like Sector 3 is where Rose is doing the most closing on Railgun. Closed by about 1/4 of a second that lap. Maybe a little less, but about 1/4 of a second that lap. Gap between Paradise and Lalba, which I talked about earlier, seems to be stable between about 4.5 and 5 seconds, so it doesn't look like that's going to go anywhere. PTT Chungus and AER Wolf are getting closer to each other for 9th and 10th, but again, I think Chungus is going to have that just because he will not have to worry about any tire fall off whatsoever. Wolf is going to start hitting tire fall off in about 3 to 4 laps here. Okay, Railgun opened up the gap on Rose and has actually gotten the gap back above 2.5 seconds at the end of Sector 1 here. And while this is happening, Virage is falling off of Rose. But here's the thing. Virage's main focus has been to beat AFC Maverick. I said earlier the gap between them was likely going to be about 22 seconds. The gap between Virage and Maverick on track right now is 34 seconds. So Virage has pulled over half a minute on Maverick. For the AFZ team that is running those Chevrolets, they need some really, really bloody fast and competent drivers and setups here for the final 2 stints. Otherwise, I think the AFZ team is out of it. The big thing, though, is that Virage continues to hemorrhage time and is losing time to TBR Rose. So Rose is bowling that team into serious contention for the overall win here in the Silver Lobby as well. Okay, so now Railgun has actually opened the gap up. He has gotten it back above 2.5 seconds now. Look at the tire life. Railgun, 32.9% for TBR Rose. 33%. Okay, so things have changed. Railgun is now managing his tires better than Rose. So I have to wonder, did Railgun back off a bit to save the tires, and now they've got their tires back where they're happy, they're going to start pushing again? Because now the gap seems to be opening back up. It just briefly hit 3 seconds again. I think that's exactly what's happened. I think Railgun backed off for a lap or two to try and salvage tires. Now they're happy with where their tires are. They're going to start pushing under the assumption that Rose is not going to be able to catch him. So I think Railgun has still got this in the bag. It's not over yet, but when they come to the line, it will be 4 laps to go. Rose is now in a position that he would have to close on Railgun by about 0.8 of a second a lap every lap from now to the end in order to pass Railgun on track. Now, granted, you could probably get away with it being closer to like 0.7 a second a lap every lap if he wants to catch him off the back of the time penalties. But again, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Railgun has figured things out a bit. I think he just backed off for a lap or two, saved the tires, as now performing back to their actual performance, what they can actually do at their peak. So I think that fight is over. Somehow, I said that I didn't think Wolf was going to get by Chungus, but no, that is exactly what has happened. Wolf has gotten by Chungus, so a swap between the two Aston Martins. There's no damage to the Castrol car, but he has fallen behind Wolf and is now hemorrhaging time. Shouldn't have to worry about falling outside of the top 10, though, but it just seems to go from bad to worse for this 666 machine. Their driver was wrecked early on in both Stint 1 and 2, and that, coupled with an inability to manage tires and an inability to keep it on track, shunted them well down the order. And while Chungus has put their car into the top 5 on occasions in both Stint 3 and 4, they have not had the pace to legitimately stay there, and they just bleed away time as the event goes on. Lap times are about 2 minutes a lap, a little bit less than 2 minutes a lap, to be fair. Gap is now up to almost 3.5 seconds. So yeah, this fight is over. Railgun has it. As long as Railgun doesn't completely botch this, it's over. Rose would have to close by nearly a second a lap. That's just not happening. I don't have the ability to look at the actual lap times here. I have intervals, I have time, I have changes, I have penalties, and pits. I do not have the ability to show you the lap times. Do driver cards work like that? Oh, yeah, they do. Well, there's your answer. Railgun, 58.689 is his best lap. 59 flat was the last lap for TBR Rose. 58.7 is their best lap. 59.3 for their last lap. Well, that's that. So that fight is over. Railgun has stabilized and is now increasing their advantage over Rose. But again, Rose does not have to win the event overall. Coming home second is going to be big, especially considering that they are about to be about 7 seconds ahead of NWR Virage, and that's before penalties are factored in as well. So that TBR team is now closing in on NWR Virage, who we believe is going to put their team at the top. Oh my God, you're the one who asked for it. There's Railguns. And there's Roses. I'm not pulling that up again because that just takes up way too much time on track. Not on track, it takes up way too much space on the screen. As it is, I wish I could shrink the map box just a little bit so it wasn't so ridiculously large. Because I feel like the map box takes up a ridiculously amount of space on the screen as well. About 5 minutes left here. The gap now starting to come down again. But it's going to likely be too little too late. 43% wear on the rear tire for Railgun. For Rose, 42.5% wear on the rear tire. So Rose has gotten the advantage back when it comes to tire life. And is starting to close the gap back down. But again, unless Rose pulls off like a 1.25 seconds a lap over the last 2 laps, the gap is too big and Railgun will still pull this off. But still, this will be the tightest gap between the top 2 that we have seen in any of the 4 stints thus far. Also, Virage is now about 7.5 seconds back behind Rose almost. So the gap now back to less than 3 seconds, but I think Railgun backed off, saved his tires well enough that he should be fine to the end. I do think he's going to fall to about a second and I'll say 1.8, 1.9 seconds between himself and Rose by the end of this. I don't think the gap's going to get any tighter than that between the 2 of them, though. Wolf has absolutely destroyed Chungus on track. I thought that Chungus would be able to put up a better fight, but no, that is over. Looks like the gap's stabilizing at about 2.8 to 2.9 range now. Railgun's likely just trying to manage the tires. There is some risk of traffic ahead. That would be Windcharger a little bit up the road, but unless Windcharger goes off and then comes back on, I don't think our top 2 are going to catch him here. Gap between Rose and Virage, almost 8 seconds now. Again, for the overall event win, that is going to be the big thing to focus on. So Rose has not closed in on Railgun by any significant amount this lap. So yeah, this is over unless Railgun suddenly pulls up a bunch of extra penalties, and that just does not look like it's going to be the case. Virage has over 2 seconds of penalties. Oh gosh, Rose is going to pull on Virage by a bit over 10 seconds. I think Rose is pulling that team into legitimate overall contention now. Final lap on track. And while Rose is not going to catch Railgun here, Rose is going to put their team very close to what Virage has for overall time. I do not currently have access to the overall time and distance sheet for the event. I'm only kind of running off of a very loose track in my mind. But Rose is pulling this team into serious, legitimate contention. AFZ Maverick is pitting. Why is Maverick pitting? And it's on the last lap. Why is he pitting on the last lap? No damage. He has fuel. Why did Maverick pit? That's it, though. That's going to cost Maverick another 20 seconds. Any shot that the AFZ team had of fighting for the overall win, this is over. That's it. I think that pit stop is going to be enough to take Maverick and that team out of contention for the overall win. It just keeps getting worse and worse for this driver. Frustration. It was fourth, but it was still a moderately respectable fourth in Stint 3, but now they are seventh, over a full minute behind the leaders here. Frustration. Okay, this is Railgun coming down to finish it up. There is some traffic ahead, but I don't think that's going to have any serious impact on him. TBR Rose hanging out just a little bit behind it, about 2.5 seconds back. As they come to the stripe, Railgun comes across. That is 3 stints out, 4 victories for the Lamborghini team. Rose is going to come home in second. Third place will be NWR Virage. About 8 seconds off of what Rose did. Fourth place should go to Harry Paradise. Fifth place looks like it will go to Lulba, who was not able to close on Harry Paradise. I thought he would have a chance, but that is not the case. One lad is going to come home 6th off the back of Maverick having to make an extra pit stop for no good reason. It's going to be a long time until we see one lad get here. Really goes to show how far out the top 5 were compared to the rest of the field here. One lad about a full minute behind Railgun as he finally comes across the line for 6th. 7th place will go to AFZ Maverick, whose bad day has just kept getting worse. And any chance this team had of winning, they were leading at the start of Stint 3. Now, it's over. Any shot they had at winning is basically over. Joe Kimbo will come home in 8th. 9th place will be AER Wolf. And PTT Shungus completely lost track with Wolf and will fall all the way back to 10th. And then the last driver on the lead lap looks like it will be AFMG Vorm. So 11 drivers finish on the lead lap. We are going to go ahead and knock out a ad break, and we'll send out invites to our top finishers. Don't know if any of them will jump in, but don't go away. We'll be back momentarily here at Silverstone. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Silverstone. As the last of our lap cars are completing here, we know that Fat Mark is not going to have the ability to finish his run. There's just not enough time left in the post-race timer here, as everyone is knocking out their run. AFMG Vorn just dropped out, but I hope that the recording records his actual time gap to the rest of the field here. But none of our top finishers have come in for interviews, so we are likely not going to get any interviews here for the end of this stint. So this broadcast will likely end very shortly here. Waiting on that to update for charger. There it is. Okay, so we are likely going to have to close the broadcast off here because we have jumped in. Or not jumped in, we have gotten an invite from the host for the next lobby. So we're going to have to close this broadcast down here, and as no one has jumped in to talk with us or apologize, again, Fat Mark does not have enough time to finish his lap, so it's not really, I don't know what the situation is there, but we are going to go ahead and close down this broadcast, and we will start up the broadcast for Stint 5 in just a few minutes. But for everyone who has joined us thus far, thank you very much for joining us, everybody. I hope, fingers crossed, I hope that everyone enjoyed this and that we will not fall too much farther behind in these final two stints. But until the next broadcast, which will be momentarily, thank you everyone for joining us. Farewell and goodbye.